This is Dateline Wyoming, produced in the studios of WyoRadio. Dateline Wyoming is a weekly news feature highlighting community issues and events that shape our lives here in Southwest Wyoming. In-depth analysis and interviews with the people behind the headlines. Presented Sunday mornings at 7 a.m. Views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of WyoRadio ownership, management, or those of our sponsors. Time will be made available for responsible dissenting opinion. And now, Dateline Wyoming.
Our guests on Dateline Wyoming today are Sweetwater County Sheriff Mike Lowell and Brett Stokes, captain of the detention center. Sheriff, let's start off. Maybe I could just get a few comments from you concerning the shootings and things that have been going on over the past couple of weeks.
Well, I think it's generated a conversation not only in Wyoming but across the country. One of the things that concerns us at our level is it's fairly difficult for us to look at officers who are involved in bad shootings. It's also difficult for us to look at the responses that come out of that. And I think what concerns us the most is we don't want to be caught up in that kind of atmosphere. We don't do those things. Our role as law enforcement officers, it's not that way. For us, it's more about you're a member of your community. It's not us against them attitude. We enforce the law only so much as the public wishes to be enforced. If you're unhappy with something, you certainly will call my office and tell me. So I just think that I concern myself with what do we do? Are we doing the right thing? Are we deficient in training? Are we deficient in policy? Are we deficient in hiring procedures? Are we deficient in psychological evaluations of our respective new members? Are there weaknesses we need to correct? Because when you look at those issues, you think, boy, here's a lesson for me. I need to look back at our stuff and see if we're where we need to be. And as a result, we're actually bringing in more training, actually incorporating that our civilian staff with our sworn staff and training that is benefit to both. Are you a good witness? Or can you document? Even if you can't handle the weapon or whatever's around, can you at least position yourself so you can be of help if you need to be? What can I do to make you feel more valued? What can I do to ensure that you're part of the team? What can I do to make sure you don't feel isolated? Lots of things.
That's an issue that has to go from both sides of the coin, does it not?
It does. It's so hard to look at that and think, boy, what is going on? How did we get to this point? What are we doing wrong? Or what are we doing right? Where do we need to go? It's very puzzling. It's also very nerve-wracking to watch it. For years we've had a good relationship with our communities in Wyoming, and we want to keep it that way. So, is there something coming down the pike that we don't see? Are we doing something wrong? Should we have seen this coming sooner?
Especially in the case where it seems like it's lone individuals, that's really difficult to predict or to do anything about.
It is, but normally in our philosophy here, when you have to be reactive, you're looking, can I do something to minimize the impact? If a person wants to do something, if a person wants to enter a school or wants to enter a public building, they're gonna normally park on a street or they're gonna walk up. So do I need cameras? And how high do I need my cameras to be? Can I secure my initial entry doorways? Do I need somebody to be there to check people? How do I control my hallways? Do I have cameras inside my hallways? Can I control my traffic patterns through the use of my cameras? Am I able to see trouble spots? It's just like our facility, the detention facility where Captain Stokes is at. We have cameras in every hallway. We have microphones. We're constantly monitoring traffic patterns. So
very difficult situation all the way around, isn't it?
Yes.
Right now, is summertime really a busier time for your department as opposed to other times of the year?
I think busier in a different way. We, of course, maintain boat patrols on the gorge, and we, of course, have agreements with the U.S. Forest Service to maintain those, do some patrolling for them. Camping issues, people out in the desert issues, lost party issues, ATV accidents, UTV accidents, motorcycle accidents, lots more people out. Alcohol increase, although I can't say that it's any more dramatic than it is in the wintertime. Usually, our break time is almost November through December. And then usually around January 1st, we start right up. We may have a different set of things we're talking about, but it's the same patterns we see every year. We kind of use that time for us, the holidays are a busy time, but it's not everybody's busy doing things for the holidays and not busy getting themselves in trouble.
In the news recently, we've heard some things about Title 25. Can you explain to us what Title 25 is?
Sure. There is a Wyoming state statute that specifically deals with a person who is a danger to himself or others, or in particular instances, unable to care for themselves. Once those behavior is exhibited in front of a law enforcement officer or a professional, we bring that person usually to the hospital. At the hospital, an evaluation is done. If that evaluation deems there needs to be some other further treatment, then hearings are scheduled. All this has a time frame that it must take place, and all those things cost money. If it ends up that you need care at a specific facility, somebody has to transport you. If somebody has to transport you, then obviously considerations are what is your mental focus? Or you have health issues. If you have medical issues other than the mental health issues, do you need to have an EMT or a paramedic? If you need to have those things, who takes that burden? How much does that burden cost? So that Title 25 budget in the county has gone up considerably over the last few years. Now I think this year's budget is slightly over $900,000. For the first 5 days of this type of procedure, and almost all those initial costs belong to the county. Then the state takes over at a different time and pays a different rate to you or pays for that treatment. But oftentimes in Title 25 issues, if there's a mental health issue and you need to go to the Wyoming State Hospital in Evanston, there may not be a spot for you. If there's not a spot, you have to go somewhere. If you have to go somewhere and you don't have any medical conditions, then you're going to end up in the county detention facility. We're not the place to do that, but we're going to be tasked with that as these budget shortfalls come into place. So we're formulating a training to take place in the fall to try to help us come up to speed. So at least if you're there, we try to help. One of the primary things for detention facilities is we know you're there for some form of punishment, but we also know that while you're there, your time should be productive. So we're trying to help with that. And
are those funds something that you budget for, or do you voucher for the county for them as they occur?
There are narrow, specific circumstances for us. One is the person incarcerated at our facility? What are the medical issues? Where does he need to go? Is there an order from a judge to be there on a specific date and time? Do you have objections if he travels with other prisoners as we transport them to other facilities around the state or somewhere else? Do they have to be handcuffed? Do they have to be soft cuffed? Handcuffing meaning, handcuff versus soft cuffs, restraint type things. We restrain everybody that travels with us on those type of issues. So if it has medical issues, then an ambulance has to transport. Can your costs go up? So you have all these things fall into play.
Let's move on to the detention center. As we had talked about previously, that is a substantial portion of your annual budget, is it not?
It has a budget of just under, I believe this year was $5 million.
And how many people do you have there at any given time in terms of prisoners?
We average about 130 a day.
130 per day. But I assume that fluctuates, people coming in and people going and so forth.
It does. It goes up and down. Right now we're down fairly lower than we've been in a while, but you'll see it jump 30 in a day. So
it can vary drastically from one day to the next.
It can.
Okay. What types of prisoners do you have there then?
We have everything from the public intox to first-degree homicide. We house juveniles. We're one of the only facilities in the state that are licensed to house juveniles. We house juveniles for lots of other counties.
And in terms of the capacity, are you over capacity, or are you near capacity?
No, we're not over. We can hold about 200, and I believe it's 214. So we've still got quite a bit of room. The juvenile part of it, we can house over 40 juveniles. So that is a large number of our beds.
When you have people in those under that condition where you have total control over what they're doing, that really puts a lot of responsibility on the facility to provide necessities and also just plan for day-to-day operations, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. We have about 55 employees out there, counting civilians. And of course, we're a 24/7 operation, so we're hopping all the time. It's kind of like a small city. We prepare our own food out there. We have a nursing staff out there. We have classes that we put on out there, including JBX and anger management, parenting classes, GED.
So you actually, since they are there at your request, so to speak. I mean, you're responsible for making sure they have a lot of the things that they might be getting on the outside. Is that
correct?
Is that kind of the way that works?
That is.
And you say you have how many people are on staff?
Approximately 55.
Okay. Give us, if you can, just maybe a slice of life, a day in the life of the captain of the detention center.
I have a lieutenant that works with me that pretty much runs the day-to-day functions of the jail. My job is to assist her in that and making decisions that need to be made as far as budget-wise, what we're going to spend, keeping the budget line items in place, like our food budget and our training budget and everything else, just keep an eye on that kind of thing. It's an administrative type position, just keeping an eye on bottom line.
In the course of a day, what kind of things normally do you deal with?
I walk through the jail 2 or 3 times a day. I try to meet with Sheriff Lowell whenever we can, get together a couple times a week. Personnel problems, just putting out fires every once in a while. Right now, with the construction going out there, we're starting to meet once a week with a construction company, going over all the constructions going on so we know what's happening that day or that week. And
that construction is consisting of?
The new Justice Center the county is building out there.
Bringing everything into one specific location should expedite a lot of things, should it not?
The biggest help is going to be having both circuit courts out there. There'll be less transporting prisoners. We have 6 vans, I believe it is, that run pretty much all the time. Once we get the circuit courts out there, it's going to be a matter of walking inmates down an underground tunnel, up an elevator into a holding facility in the circuit court buildings, and then going right into court and right back into jail. So it's going to cut our costs as far as transporting. As far as safety and security for officers and everything else, it's going to reduce a lot of that.
Right now, you spend a lot of time just driving and transporting people from one place to another.
We do, a lot.
Dateline Wyoming continues after this message.
This is you over 30 years ago.
Are we there yet? Are we there yet?
And this is your mom when you drive her back from therapy.
Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet?
Roles change without us noticing, and in your new role, we help you help. AARP gives you the information to help care for your mom so that you can have patience with her, just like she did with you. Visit aarp.org/caregiving or call 1-877-333-5885 to get practical health and wellness tips to provide even better care for your loved one.
Are we there yet?
Remember, visit aarp.org/caregiving. AARP, we help you help. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
We now continue with Dateline Wyoming.
What do you see as some of the problems or issues that should be addressed or you're addressing out there in terms of the entire detention center?
I think we're running pretty smooth right now. There's some things that when Sheriff Lowell got elected that we wanted to change a few things, just little operational type things inside the jail. I think we've done a good job with transitioning into this new courthouse, and everything else is going to be interesting. I should say when we get it up and built, it's going to be interesting when they start having to cut holes in walls and work inside the jail. Of course, all the construction workers that work out there in order to work in the jail are going to have background checks done on them, and we're going to have somebody with them. And so we've got some objects in front of us here that are going to come up, but I think we're going to work around it just fine.
What is the time frame for having that whole facility finished?
The last I heard, it was 15 months.
15 months out right now.
Yeah, about that, yes.
Which courts will be located there?
The Rock Springs Circuit Court, which right now is Judge Jones's court, and the Green River Circuit Court, which is Judge Procos's court.
Is that going to require any additions to the staff, or will those courts bring their own staff with them to a certain extent?
As far as I understand, the courts will bring their own staff. It will boost our staff a little bit because of court security, because we'll be in charge of the security of that facility, so we're going to have a few more court security officers.
Speaking of security, I would imagine that's probably close to the top of your list of important things that you're dealing with. How do you deal with security out there?
You have to have a sheriff's office ID badge to even get into the secured areas. We have central control that controls all the doors. You can't get in the facility unless you're ID'd. You can come in the lobby. That's about it. But as far as getting back in the secured area, our central control has total control over that. And without the proper ID and knowing who you are, then you just can't get back in there.
What are the positive things you see in your position and in doing what you're doing over there at the detention center?
Well, the positive things for me, I've been with the sheriff's office 26 years, and I've worked the street, and I've started in the jail, worked the street, and worked some administrative stuff. And when Sheriff Lowell took over, he tasked me with going to the jail, and it's been a challenge for me. It's been a change. It's different what I've been doing. It's been a lot of fun, to be honest with you, and it's fulfilling. It feels good every day that I go out there and take care of the things that need to be taken care of, and the facility seems to run well. And
probably a lot more administrative than previous, is that?
Oh, correct, yes.
What percentage of your budget is taken with the detention center?
Slightly over 50%.
That includes day-to-day operational expenses and payroll and the whole thing, huh?
Yes, that's correct, yeah.
What is the concern or the issue with this Title 25 thing right at this point?
The biggest issue is how do you control the budget? How do you control the costs that are spiraling? I think, as I recall, less than 2 years ago, that budget was under $400,000. So, and that budget's not in my budget. That's a budget dealt directly with by the commission. How much cost must be borne by the local entity? When does the state take over? How fast can we get that person into treatments? If the state hospital says to you, although the judge has ordered that person there for an evaluation or some form of treatment, but there are no spaces available, that person stays with us. Well, if that person stays with us, we're footing that bill, and we're not providing the treatment necessary, so he's in kind of a holding pattern. So that person's not really getting any better, and we're not trained to do those kind of things, so we have to make some changes. I assume that the budget issues are not going to get any better. It's not good for you to sit there and just stew. So let's just do what we can do to make their lives productive, meaningful, help them with their issues. So we're doing that, and so as we expand, we lose costs in some areas and we gain costs in other areas. For instance, although we won't travel as much to interior courts, now we have 2 judges together. Now we're going to be traveling more in what we call the Northwest Consortium. That's an organization of law enforcement and other agencies who transport people across this state and other states and for specific reasons. We belong to the consortium because it helps lower our costs. So our vans are constantly on the move, transporting from one place to another, depending if you're going to a state prison or an honor farm, or you're going to the Wyoming Behavioral Institute, or you're going north to drug rehabilitation in Cody, or you're trying to get into the state mental hospital, or just wherever it is. So
separation of inmates is really a issue. And I would assume this just adds to that particular situation.
We like to think that on a day that if we could actually get into our max population where we were totally full, we'd have to have the perfect balance of whites, non-whites, gays, non-gays, lesbians, LGBTs, gang members, non-gang members, motorcycle gang members, gangsters. All these populations have to balance out. And of course, the populations never do. You take up space because you're limited because of these underpinnings and these undercurrents of what they're doing. And obviously, you can't put those in the same facility or in the same area because it starts. When it starts, it's trouble for us. People get injured, officers get injured, the day is disrupted. For me, it's the number one concern. We completed an audit just to let us know where we need to be, how should we be spending our money, where should we be in 5 years, how do we get there, what is it going to cost us, what does our focus need to be? Is it on just the punishment end, or is it on the end of education, or is it on the end of skills or parenting skills, or how to balance a budget, some kind of advanced drug rehabilitation. We're moving into medical type rehabilitation where we use the facility. So instead of not just counseling, but do we also give medicines that inhibit your ability to commit or want to reoffend or want to reuse for a period of time. So we're experimenting in those areas too. So,
is there a lot of gang-related activity in this area?
In Wyoming as a whole, if you look at motorcycle gangs, we call them OMGs. Who controls the East? Who controls the West? Who's up north? Who's down south? Who controls what kind of drug trafficking? Who conducts the porno movement? Who controls ammunition and illegal firearms? Everybody has a stake in the game, and they all want control. Then you have the other members who are the career criminal gang types, and you have those, and those are separate from the OMGs, or the outlaw motorcycle gang. So you have all these various factions and rivalries with loyalties and everything else, and you're trying, when you do the intake, to separate these groups out so you can have them or get them together in an area where they can be as least destructive as possible.
Do you see more of that activity during the summertime? Is that?
I don't give them credit, so I won't mention their names, but you have affiliations from the East that come through, traveling through. You have affiliations from here. You have support clubs, which are compared to the sophomore team to the varsity, those who are striving to become members of the other organization. You see support clubs in town. So you see all those underpinnings. And of course, we like everybody has to have our own intelligence units and our own undercover units, which are involved in the day-to-day activities of these various organizations, so we can try to anticipate what our problems are going to be in the future.
Talk, if you will, just a little bit about the communications and the relationship amongst the various law enforcement agencies in the county and across the state.
Well, Wyoming's unique because everything in law enforcement is done by handshake. So if you say you're going to deliver, you deliver. If you don't deliver, then you're known for that too. So we don't. It's just we call up on the phone and say, hey, what can we do to help you? The hunt for the murderers out of Sublette County, we provided teams. Other people provided teams. If you need us, call us, and we're going to be there, and we're going to work out the details later. There's not rivalries. I'm always amazed when you hear about rivalries between organizations. Wyoming, it's so small that it's the world's biggest little small town, so everybody knows everybody, and so it's all about cooperation, cohesion, getting things done, and we just don't really have the time for that.
A small town with really long streets, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, you do. I mean, where else can you go to breakfast at the United States Center or a Supreme Court judge or a congressman, or you'll know them all. They'll be from your hometown, or you'll be in the same business. So it's very different here.
But there aren't as such formal written agreements for any of that.
We have our fair share, but it's as simple as a phone call. You call, I'm going to provide whatever resources I can provide that you need. I'm more than willing to share them with you.
Any final thoughts?
Enjoy the fair.
Enjoy the fair and drink responsibly.
Absolutely.
And all of that type of thing.
Yeah, we don't want you to visit us. We don't want any local money. Okay.
It seems to me that last year there was really very few incidents of.
There were. It was very low key.
Is that just due to a obvious presence of law enforcement, do you think?
Well, I don't know. In the past, our obvious presence never seemed to slow anybody down. So I don't know if we're thinking about if it's economic, because once again, we're going to be tasked with deploying resources. Mm-hmm. How do we deploy those resources? How much is it going to cost? How do we maximize for the amount of money you have to spend? And is it going to be enough? And, what role does the sheriff's office play? Because we provide transport, of course, and booking offices for jails to alleviate the patrol people from all agencies concerned, so they can stay on their job and we can help with them. So, yeah, it's all a 2 aspirin kind of day.
This year we don't have the National Finals Rodeo, but I suppose when you have those kind of events with those numbers of people coming in.
Well, I think you look at National Finals High School Rodeo. One, it's a different structure. They have rules. They expect them to be followed. There are punishments for violations of rules.
They're very much self-policing.
And there's no alcohol, so that in itself lowers the standards that we have to have there. So we have. That's the cost there is relatively insignificant as compared to what the fair can run.
Is it fair to say that drugs and alcohol are at the source of many of the issues that you deal with?
Well, that's fair to say. Yeah, it's probably just substance abuse in any form, and it's probably the preeminent issue in Wyoming. I can't imagine anything that takes a higher toll. All you have to look is we have the Department of Health, so one of the largest budgets in the state. You look at what we spend on alcohol. Look at all the new programs they're talking about. Look at medical side substance abuse issues. Look at counseling issues, look at 24/7's coming, which is a form of testing for people who have been sentenced. So all this money is being spent on just in those areas. So yeah.
Is it a function of the economy at all?
Well, you know what? I thought that we would see a downturn in some issues, but we didn't seem to have any. It didn't seem the economic downturn did not seem to have any effect on us, other than to make it more difficult to get budgets approved, because the commission, of course, is very well aware of the loss of revenue. So and it affects everyone, even public safety. So we haven't really seen that kind of swing. So I suppose when it's good, it's really good. When it's bad, it's still good, kind of thing. So
thanks for coming in today.
We appreciate it. Thanks for having us.
Our guests on Dateline Wyoming today have been Sweetwater County Sheriff Mike Lowell and Captain Brent Stokes of the Detention Center. You have been listening to Dateline Wyoming with your host, Tom Ellis. Dateline Wyoming is a public affairs presentation of WyoRadio News, presented every Sunday at this time, highlighting community issues and events that shape our lives here in Southwest Wyoming. Views expressed on this program are not necessarily those of WyoRadio ownership, management, or that of our sponsors. Time will be made available for responsible dissenting opinion. Audio copies of this program will be available each Monday following the program's airtime on Sunday at youtube.com/WyoRadio.